guys, welcome back to Keep It Apostolic, the most edifying podcast in the world. I'm joined here today with Miss Carlie Walton. Thank you for coming onto the podcast.
Of course, happy to be here. My name's Carlie. I'm a physical therapist. I've been living in Texas for a few years now.
Nice. So we're talking today about your story, your conversion story into Orthodoxy. So my first question for you is, it's less of a question, more of just, kind of talk about yourself a little bit, but just take us back from the beginning of your journey in the Orthodox faith, starting from where you were originally and kind of how you got into Orthodoxy and all that, and go from there.
Sure. So I was raised in the Protestant church, specifically Baptist. Kind of grew up in that my whole life, and then I moved to Texas for grad school. And when I was in grad school, met someone that was Orthodox, and then eventually kind of started asking him questions about it. And then kind of the short version is that started looking into stuff on my own, eventually decided I wanted to try going to the church. And then I went to a liturgy. That was my first experience in the church, and I've been here since.
So tell me a little bit more about that beginning sector where you kind of started asking those questions about Orthodoxy. What was it that prompted you to kind of seek the Orthodox faith when you presented the opportunity?
So it kind of goes back a few years before I found out about the church. I was actually, with my church back home, I was reading a book called Letters to the Church, and it talked about kind of the state of the Protestant church in America and why the church looks so different from the early church in Acts. And that book kind of got me thinking and got me questioning some things and having some doubts about the faith that I was in. And then, honestly, what first drew me to the Orthodox Church was fasting. So I found out that the Orthodox Church will fast throughout the year, and I thought that was something that was really cool. Didn't know much about it. So that's kind of what got me asking questions. And then I think there were so many things about the church, honestly, that attracted me to it. But I think like the oldness of the church and just like the rich history really kind of drew me in from the beginning.
So when you talk about like fasting, what was it about fasting specifically that, you were kind of attracted to? Because a lot of us in the church, we see fasting as like the opposite of attractive. We're like, this is terrible. So what was it that kind of was the opposite for you?
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't necessarily the act of fasting that I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. But I think seeing fasting, it made me think of like honestly, it just brought me back to that book. And I was like, okay, fasting is something that is biblical, but like from a Protestant standpoint, it's not something that you see practiced very often. And so I think the discipline of it kind of drew me in. And then the more I learned about fasting and the purpose of it, I really liked the idea of having something that's not necessarily bad, but deciding that I'm going to choose to refrain from it for the sake of like growing in discipline and replacing it with other good things. I don't know. That idea of discipline, I just really liked.
So you mentioned the discipline a little bit, and I wanted to backtrack a little bit further, like a little earlier in your life, where, you were still like in the Protestant church and growing up here in the West. For a lot of us that grew up in the West, at least in the Coptic Orthodox Church, it's very easy for us to kind of go through the motions and just kind of be like in and out of the church just because, our parents told us to go to church on Sunday, so we kind of go. But for all of us, like we have this moment or this time, or you could call it a testimony, where we kind of feel attracted to take our faith seriously. What was that for you to start taking your faith in God seriously? What was that kind of that moment in time?
I mean, honestly, I was very involved in the Protestant church. And so I really, like, faith had always been a huge part of my life. So it's not like I really had a time where I wasn't in the church. Like, I was very much involved in the Baptist church. But I think, I don't know, I think the way that it wasn't even a decision to take it more seriously. I think the issues that I saw with the Baptist church, I always saw myself being a part of the change in the issues that I saw. And then learning about Orthodoxy, I think I had this realization that maybe it's not for me to fix the problems from the inside. Like maybe there's an maybe there's an issue with the whole system. Maybe I need to seek something else. Which I truly feel like the Baptist church really almost prepared me for orthodoxy. Like, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was God, like, choosing that route to bring me to orthodoxy. I think a lot of the things that maybe I lacked there, like, it makes it so much richer now in orthodoxy.
I really like that. I think the outlook of, like, God has a plan for everything, and there's always a purpose behind everything, and it's not just things are happening accidentally. And like throughout this change of from Baptist to Orthodoxy, it's a very big change. Baptist is there's no really sacraments. It's kind of, I mean, it's really night and day, to be honest with you. It's very, very, very different. Did you feel like throughout that time of transforming into an Orthodox Christian that you almost felt like were you ever afraid at any point to like lose a part of who you were, that you had, like, or a part of that spirituality that you had in the Baptist church as you transitioned?
I mean, definitely, especially when I was in the questioning period and kind of researching things on my own. But before I had actually started going to the Orthodox church, I definitely felt very, very lost and would stay up at night just thinking, like, am I really going to do this? Like, what am I doing? Am I crazy? Am I throwing away everything I've believed in my whole life? But I feel like God just kept showing me these answers, and no matter how much unrest I felt in that, he kept drawing me towards it. And then truly, once I actually went to the church, it was like immediate, unexplainable peace. Like, it really was like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I really, truly felt like I was home.
What was it that made you take that step to go to church? What was that final thing that just pushed you into there?
Honestly, I think I just realized, like, there's no point in continuing to search and ask questions if I'm not going to do something more concrete. And I think also I came to a point where even if I didn't feel like orthodoxy was for me, I felt like I had so many issues with the Protestant church that I didn't know if I could go back to that either. And so I was like, okay, the only way is forward, so we might as well try it.
What would you say was the biggest, you mentioned fasting, but what was the thing about when you mentioned going to the Orthodox church and feeling that peace? What was it about the Orthodox church that kind of, when you step foot in it, that kind of gave you that peace? Or is it not really explainable?
I would say it's not really explainable. I don't know if it was, I mean, there were definitely things about the church. The people were amazing and were so welcoming from the beginning, thank God. That was such an easy part of it. And there were other things too, but I think more than anything, it was God. I think God knew that if I felt like too uncomfortable, or if I got there and didn't have that feeling, that I would have left immediately and never come back. So I truly think that feeling of peace came straight from him, that I was where I was supposed to be. Because every week I went back, I would pray and say, if this isn't where I'm supposed to be, please make it known. Like, let me know that this isn't right, and I'll leave immediately.
A question I like to ask all the converts that come on the podcast is, like, for us, like, we see the church as a home, and so a home is a very like familiar place, and so the question is, like, when you first entered the Orthodox church, before it really became home, was it already home?
I think I had a feeling of home, but what was surrounding me was not as much familiar. Like, it was very overwhelming. It definitely took some time to get used to. But I think that was what was so crazy about it, is because on every other front, I felt like I should have been terrified. I should have been like, this is so crazy, because it is so different than what I was used to. But through that, there was still peace.
Obviously, like you mentioned, Orthodoxy is very different, has a very different rhythm compared to other churches, especially churches of the West, even the Catholic Church. It's just like nothing is really comparable to it. When you were, dealing with this overwhelming feeling of all these different things and literally using all of your senses in worship, like, how did you digest all of that? How did you kind of come to terms with the fact that this is all, like, church versus what you were used to church being?
I think I had to take it one piece at a time. The first week was, even though it was amazing and I was so happy to be there, it was very overwhelming. But I think once I went a few weeks, I had to make a decision of like, okay, I think I'm gonna start coming regularly. And so at that point, I decided just to kind of tackle one issue at a time. Because obviously there were things that I didn't necessarily agree with, or more than anything, I didn't understand. So I would like take on the topic of like icons, or, like sensing, like different things like that. And really week by week, God found a way to like reveal truth to me. And it wasn't even like I was really seeking it out, but it was just coming in the form of Bible studies or anything, randomly, these things that I was like, okay, this is what we're going to, this is what we're going to think about this week. And he would just answer them. It was really surreal.
How important do you think it was for you to have that spirit of like humility and desire for understanding versus like having a questioning and more of a kind of like, I want to find out what's wrong about this type of mentality?
I mean, that was definitely like a hard part of it, because one thing about the church that I was raised in is like, there was definitely a stress on biblical knowledge and knowing your Bible, knowing, why you believe what you believe. And so I feel like coming in, I had 10 answers to everything of, okay, why is this wrong? Why should there not be icons? Why should we, not take the intercession of like saints in prayer, all these things. But I really had to kind of come at it from a blank slate and say like, okay, let me learn about Orthodoxy, their perception of these things, like how does Orthodoxy explain these things? And then through the lens of Orthodoxy, those things made so much more sense. Because when I tried to look at them through a Baptist lens and a Baptist understanding, of course, they really didn't. But looking at through the lens of Orthodoxy, then everything just started coming together.
Would you say that throughout your time of in that learning phase of Orthodoxy and kind of struggling with your beliefs on that you've had your whole life as a Baptist, would you say that, during those moments, there were times where you felt like conflicted within yourself and you felt like almost like, because obviously spirituality is not just up and it's not just down, there's ups and downs. Did you ever feel like a moment in that time where there was a down period where you were just like what's even the point? Like, is any of this real? Like, what's even going on? Like,
oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think if anyone's going through that and they don't have those thoughts, I mean, props to them. But I mean, definitely you have those thoughts and those fears of like, am I really doing the right thing? What if I'm throwing away, what I had, and what if it was good? But I think there's also this maybe misconception that if you're coming into this truth and it's so amazing that you're not going to have those periods of lukewarmness, but I mean, they're still going to come, And so I definitely still experience those things the same as everyone else. But I think the trick is to just, when you go through those periods of lukewarmness, to not think like, oh, because I'm feeling this, that means I made the wrong decision. Because I think it's easy to do that, to go through those kind of cold periods and think that means you did it wrong. But I definitely don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah. And I think that like there's two aspects of evangelism. There's the content itself, the truth itself, and then the people. And I think obviously Orthodoxy has the truth and it's so deep and there's so many things and you can learn for the rest of your life and still not even scratch the surface. But I think the part that we as Orthodox Christians struggle with a little bit is the people. We struggle a little bit to build those relationships and to break those walls and to kind of be that welcoming presence. How would you say that your experience with the Orthodox people was in that time period of, coming and seeing and all that? I
mean, I definitely think every convert, I'm sure, has a very different experience with this. And I obviously can't speak to anyone else's. But I was so blessed. People were so kind and so welcoming from the very beginning, and really built real relationships. I never got the feeling that if I struggled with making that decision, or maybe I, stopped coming for a little bit, that people would just stop talking to me. Like, it really felt like they cared and they wanted me to be there. And I even had people tell me early on, like, hey, even if you decide this isn't for you, like, we can still be friends, we can still talk, and I think that was big for me, coming from a very evangelistic background. I've also seen the other side of it, where sometimes people can be treated like projects, and I definitely didn't want that. And luckily, I didn't feel like that at all. I was very, very blessed.
Yeah. How would you say that those relationships with whether clergy, mentors, friends, whatever, how did that, help in your like understanding as well as digestibility and just being able to, keep coming back week after week to something that's so new and so different?
I mean, I think obviously Orthodoxy was very different than what I was used to, but also there is the cultural aspect of things that I was very nervous about and was afraid of not fitting in. And I don't like to stand out in a crowd. I don't like new experiences. I don't like change. And so I was very nervous about that going in, but people really made it very, very easy for me. Again, yeah, I was so blessed. I can't speak enough to like how great people were. And especially the priests were they were so gracious with me and gave me time to like, come to different realizations. I never felt pushed. It was really, everyone made it so easy.
I think it's the benefit of having the truth is that that the faith itself is so attractive that there's no need to sit here and like push someone through it. As long as you're there to kind of be the supporting wall behind them, there's nothing more you really need to do. So I think that's kind of the benefit of us being Orthodox and having that truth. So as you kind of realize that truth was, becoming, a reality in your life, and you're really taking it seriously, and you're nearing that point of conversion, of baptism, what was the feeling like as you're kind of nearing those last couple weeks, couple months before the decision to get baptized and then ultimately the baptism itself?
It was, I don't know, it was such a surreal time, because I think leading up to it, I was very nervous about actually making that decision. And I think part of me for a long time wasn't really ready to admit that I was actually going to do this. And so then once I made that decision to be baptized, then there were a lot more conversations I had to have, like official conversations with family and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, it was scary, but also, I don't know. I actually, a few weeks before my baptism, my grandmother actually passed away. And I thought that I was going to have to reschedule my baptism because I was in Louisiana and there was all this stuff going on. But honestly, that happening made me realize, like, I don't want to go another week without being baptized. I don't want to go another week without being, like, officially Orthodox. So it was a whole, like, I don't know, series of events that really led up to my baptism.
And so talk us through that day itself and kind of like the moment. And I'm always interested because a lot of us that grew up in the church, we don't get the blessing of feeling it because I was 40 days old when I got baptized, Right. But it's always like watching adult baptisms or watching people get baptized in general, but specifically adult baptisms. It really it's a way for us to relive that sacrament in our own lives and kind of, sit through the prayers and contemplate, are we really doing this? Are we really following the things that we're telling these people that are joining our faith to do? So talk me through kind of, that baptism day, what it was like, the feelings, all of it.
I mean, I think I was very lucky in that kind of a mentor that I had was with me on my baptism day. And right after I was baptized, everybody else had left the room. And she told me, she was like, a lot of times people they rush and they're trying to get ready and get dressed and all this stuff. She was like, just sit here, take it all in, like take this time, pray, do whatever you need to do. But I'm so glad she did that, because I really got to soak it all in and think about what that moment meant. And I think being baptized and then being able to take communion for the first time, it was so amazing because it's something I had been baptized in the Baptist church. I had taken communion in the Baptist church, but to see the difference of those two things in the Orthodox church and the way that you like truly encounter Christ in those moments was something so different. I felt so close to God in those moments specifically.
I think that's beautiful. And I think it's a realization for us as, especially those of us who are very lukewarm in our faith, that like the reality of what we're partaking in is the same reality that you partook of on that day.
Right.
And that's what we're taking in every single week, if you go multiple times a week, whatever. And like, there's no way I could relate to that specific feeling of baptism and chrismation and communion on one day. Like it's a lot. But I think it's always beautiful to witness it and to also hear about it and all that. And so for a lot of converts that I've talked to, they always tell me the first month is always the hardest. They get baptized and then it's like, they get hit with a train. Did you have that same experience or not?
I actually didn't. I feel like the train came more before I decided to come to the church. Just because that was, I don't know if it's because I was coming from another church, or there was so much like social stuff involved in it too, that was a much harder process for me. I think once the baptism and everything was done, I felt like I could almost breathe a little bit. Yeah. Like I was like, okay, I am where I'm supposed to be.
So now that you're on the other side of the baptism and you're looking, you're having that moment, you're looking back, all this stuff, because you're born again, so you're given, the new eyes of the soul, and you're kind of looking, you can see the faith in almost a different way. What was it that, what was kind of, let's say like the next few months after that, what did you kind of feel like God was trying to tell you and trying to push you in what certain way in your life? And did you feel like there was any sort of message that, right post-baptism, that you were trying to kind of seek from God?
No, that's a tough question. I think more and more he was just showing me what it looks like to live with him daily. And I think that's one thing the church is so great about that I really love, is there's so many opportunities to come to his house and experience him in different ways. Whereas definitely I was very involved in the church before, but if anything, I would go on, Sunday mornings, maybe one other day for some service. But I love that the Orthodox Church has so many different services. That way, even if you feel yourself pulling away at all, it really draws you back in. And I think in general, God was just trying to reveal to me more about who he is, and how, ultimately how his plans are so much better than ours are. So in Orthodoxy, we believe in the chrismation and the Holy Spirit entering into the soul of the person. Did you feel like that there was a genuine difference in, did you feel like before, like maybe you didn't have it and maybe you did after? Like, was there a genuine difference, or was it maybe not so much as apparent? That's something I wondered, like beforehand, would I feel so much different afterwards? I don't think there's a difference that I can necessarily pinpoint, or not that there's not a difference, but nothing that I could explain. But because I do think I think the Holy Spirit was working in my life before, but not working in me the same way. Yeah. So I definitely think there is a difference now in the way that the way that the Holy Spirit works in my life on a daily basis. But nothing that I could necessarily pinpoint, I think. I'm always interested in that, because obviously, like, we believe the Holy Spirit works for everyone, because God is not just for specific certain people, but having it in you versus next to you, is there, how much of a difference? I'm always interested to ask. As you kind of grew in the church a little bit, were there any moments where post-baptism where you felt like, where you struggled with this idea of, maybe I didn't make the right decision, or was that kind of all ironed out before? Again, I think when you have those moments of doubt, it's really easy for Satan to creep in and say like, oh, you messed up, you did the wrong thing. But I think it's just important to, in those moments, you kind of push forward and just, I really think God uses those moments to test you and to grow you into something greater. So I think I mean, yeah, I definitely had those thoughts, but I think ultimately I usually ended up stronger on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think it's like, as us in the Orthodox Church, a lot of times, like even us as we're growing up, like we don't, did we choose the right thing? Because we didn't really choose, but we always think we have these, not we always, we have these doubting moments where, it's like, is this really the true faith? Is this really, is this really Christ on the altar? I think is a very big one that I struggled with in high school was, like, oh, like it's bread and wine at the end of the day, like it's not, the body and the blood of Christ. But I think that realization of, like on the last podcast, we're talking about like being serious in prayer, like that realization of what's really happening in front of you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that Orthodoxy has that maybe other denominations don't have, is this seriousness to it. And this like genuine, just like realness of what Orthodoxy is, and what the faith is, and all that. How did the people around you, like family and friends and just people that were in your life before the conversion, what was their reaction to it?
I thank God my parents, I really think they knew how involved I was in the Baptist church. Like they knew how important faith was to me. And so when I started having those conversations with them about the Orthodox Church and what the differences were, and then eventually that I was, thought I was going to get baptized, they were really, even though they didn't necessarily agree, they were very supportive. I think they knew that for me to make such a big decision like this meant that I had put a lot of thought into it and a lot of prayer into it, and I wouldn't have just gone into it for fun. Mm-hmm. So they were, I think, as supportive as they could have been. And luckily, most of my friends that I grew up with in the church, they're not necessarily around me now because they're in Louisiana. And so I was able to, I don't want to say go through this on my own, but I didn't have as much of that influence. Even though I would talk to them about it, it's not like I was around them every day. So I really didn't get to see a lot of their reactions to it. But for the most part, they were definitely very inquisitive. But I didn't really have any super negative reactions.
Do you think that changing of environment for you was vital in, like, moving from Louisiana to Texas, was vital in the conversion? And like, had you never moved, but like everything else was kind of the same, do you think that would have changed anything?
I like to believe that God would have found a way to bring me to Orthodoxy no matter what, but I do think it would have been much, much, much harder. I mean, for one, there's not an Orthodox church near me there. But I think also there would have been too many reasons to stay where I was at and stay complacent. Even though they wouldn't have been necessarily good reasons, I think it would have just been much, much harder to take that leap.
I think that complacency is something that, not just in a story of conversion, but in our own lives and everyone's life is something that we all struggle with, because it's so easy to be comfortable, and change never happens when you're comfortable. Change only happens when things are hard and you're growing, and like, mm-hmm. you don't really have a choice, because change is not human nature. It's not human nature to undergo change. And so I think it's something we can learn from is, maybe we don't have to move, but like changing your environments of maybe the people you hang out with or the things you fill yourself with. Like I know, for example, like music is a big thing, things like that. Like just changing the environment of the world around you and your soul, the environment of your soul, I think is the way how people can grow both in their faith and just in general in life. I think is an important thing. What is something that you wish people knew about conversion stories, like the silent struggles or the silent wins? You as a convert, you have a very different insight of Orthodoxy that a lot of us don't get to see. What is something you wish that, you look to the people at church next to you and you just wish that they knew?
I think this is something that, obviously people know, but to have a better understanding of how different everyone's conversion is going to look. Because I think sometimes people can get discouraged maybe when people start coming to the church, when new people start coming. but maybe it doesn't take immediately, or I don't know, maybe they come for a little while and then they kind of back off and then they come again. Like my conversion story was honestly very short. I attended my first liturgy in July and I got baptized in November. So, which I think is pretty fast. But definitely not all people are going to be that quick. So I think there's definitely a balance between having grace for people, letting them go on their own timeline, but at the same time not being so hands off that they feel disconnected, you know?
What do you think that line is?
It's probably different for every person. I think you just have to be good at reading people and knowing when someone needs that connection and needs you to invite them to things. Or also like, okay, maybe I need to step back a little bit, let them figure it out. Or sometimes it's also pointing them to the right sources. You know, maybe they specifically need to talk to a priest to have some of their, you know, questions answered, but maybe they're not ready to do that, or they don't feel like they're allowed to ask for that, and just, you know, showing them what resources that they have.
I think that's a very good point, is showing the resources they have. And I think as Orthodox Christians, we can't be scared to say, I don't know the answer.
Absolutely. The friend that I had that introduced me to the church, I asked him so many questions coming in, so many that I look back now and think, wow, that question didn't even matter. But he was so great at answering the questions that he knew. And when a question was over his head, he was so humble and either he usually sent me to priests or, you know, other sources where he knew I could find an answer that maybe he wasn't prepared to give yet.
So I think one of the biggest differences of Orthodoxy compared to Catholicism or the Baptist Church is the idea of suffering grace in the last day. In Catholicism, they believe in purgatory. Baptists, a lot of them believe in rapture. And it's just something I'm just personally interested in. So this is kind of just me asking. But how did you kind of come to the? Because it's one thing when you come from a place like a church that wants to explain everything. So in Catholicism, they love explaining everything. So they want to put names on everything and explain everything and science and all that. And it's great because science would never have evolved the way it did without them. So of course we're thankful for that. And especially in Baptists or the Protestant church in general is kind of the opposite of that, where it's, you know, explained but not in the way they did, you know, type of thing. So when you come from a place of where you know, or an ideology that tries to explain everything, you come to Orthodoxy that is the king of saying, we don't know. How is that kind of like wrestling with that idea of a mystery, whether it's suffering, salvation, grace, the sacraments, we call it a mystery, or like even the last day? How do you kind of wrestle with that?
I think even though sometimes it is more difficult to not have the answers, I think in general, I don't know, there's beauty in the mystery. And I think in general, you know, if the God we serve is so big, but we can explain, you know, all of the motives and all of, you know, the thoughts and the actions, then he's obviously not as big as we think he is, you know? And I think there is beauty in knowing that, like, I'm not on this earth, I'm not going to have the answers, and that's okay. Like, I'm living the truth the truth that he's given us, and the rest, you know, he'll work out.
Yeah. I think it takes humility, and I think for a lot of us who grew up in Orthodoxy, myself first and foremost included, like, we like to ask these questions not from a place of curiosity, but a place of like trying to get a gotcha moment, you know, and trying to prove things wrong. And like we alluded to earlier, like I think it stems from that humility and having that spirit of, you know, like really just wanting to understand what the church says. So what is your advice to people who are either in Orthodoxy or seeking Orthodoxy that have these questions come up and they kind of, maybe it's not with the right spirit? What is your, you know, advice to them of kind of taking a step back, rethinking why they're thinking the way that they're thinking, and kind of reassessing from there? What is your advice to them?
I mean, I think self-reflection is really important. I think when you're seeking truth, the goal should always be, you know, in some way to know God more, but in a personal way that is going to bring you closer to him. And I think there's some things that even if we had if we were given the answers right now, would it really affect our faith that much? Would it really bring us closer to him? Maybe not.
Do aliens exist?
Yeah. It's like, okay, maybe this isn't going to bring me closer to God. So I think self-reflection is really important, and understanding the why of what you're doing and why you're seeking this truth to begin with. But I think in general, with the right intentions, it's always good to seek truth. Like God wants us to seek him more, know, but
I think like you briefly mentioned, like it's having the end in mind. Like the point of me asking my questions is for my eternal salvation. If that's my goal, and if that's how if that's the paradigm I look at, the lens I look at that through, then the questions will come in a natural, correct progression. Mm-hmm. But if I come from the opposite of like trying to be an apologist against my faith, then maybe I'm not, putting myself in a scenario of growth, and I'm more just kind of picking at it. A lot of times, conversion can be seen as like the end result, when in reality it's the beginning of a long journey. Mm-hmm. How did you because it's the end of one journey and the beginning of another. So how did you kind of have that transition of end of one, beginning to another? How did you kind of deal with that?
I think one thing that I really loved about the Orthodox Church is the view on salvation, and that you were constantly working out your salvation. So I really think, starting this journey and realizing that it is the start of a journey, there is a constant call back to repentance. And the church in its wisdom is so good at drawing us back whenever we, stray away. And so I think for me, coming from a church background, it was a little bit more of a seamless transition, but just realizing that like every day is a gift and every day matters, and really every moment is a chance for us to like repent and turn back to God. In that journey, and as we are like trying to fight the good fight.
Yeah, I think that the salvation in a moment is such a dangerous way of thinking, because then you become complacent. Whereas like even for us as Orthodox Christians who grew up in the faith and were born, like we even can fall in this trap of like, well, call us, we're already baptized, like we're already here, we take communion every week, like like we're fine,
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's about, like you said, like living that life. And I think as well, like God holds people to different standards based on, like God's not going to hold someone who's never heard of orthodoxy to the same standard as someone who born and heard the truth and lived in the truth and grew up in the truth. So I think it's again that like going back to the point of like seeing adult baptisms is a reminder for us that that's our reality, and like you had the blessing of living that reality and being able to remember that reality. But I think it's a good reminder for all of us that like that is the reality that we live in.
And like you said earlier, I do truly think that every person, whether born in the Orthodox Church or not, or if they come later in adulthood, like at some point you do have to make that, a conscious decision of like, I'm choosing to be here because I love God and I want to grow closer to him, and this stuff matters. Yeah.
How do you bring the sacred into the ordinary? Like you have this beautiful story, you've in the Orthodox faith now, and the Orthodox faith is very sacred, a lot of things, rituals, rites, all this. How do you bring this sacred reality of timeless, ancient Christianity into ordinary 2025 Houston, Texas life?
Yeah, I think it is, I feel like this is a simple answer, but it really is just the fact that God is so great and so much bigger than us, but then at the same time, like he wants to do life with us every day, and he wants to have a personal relationship with us. And I think orthodoxy, in whether it be in the way that we pray or the way that we worship, like it is such an easy way to have that companionship, or not easy, but it is such a great tool to have that companionship with Christ. And so I think that's just like in the daily life, whether it be, an arrow prayer that you're repeating throughout the day, they're very small, simple things, but they make such a big impact.
Yeah. What do you think is, after this entire journey, what do you think is something that God is stirring in your heart now as like that next question or that next thing to kind of wrestle with?
I think sometimes I don't know if this is the case for every convert, but at least for me, I think being a convert, and from the very beginning, I was very, very involved. And I think because of that, I almost got this reputation, or people just have this expectation of me that is so great that I think for me, it is easy to grow complacent, because I feel like, oh, I'm doing so, I fall into that pride of like, oh, well, I'm still so new and I'm doing all this stuff. But I think it's more that God is just constantly telling me, like, this isn't it. You still have the rest of your life. Like, you should continue growing every day. And so I definitely have to, fight complacency a lot, which is probably not the most exciting thing. But I think that's the biggest thing, is he's just always challenging me and pushing me to do more and not be okay with the level that I've reached.
Yeah. And I think it's something that in general, as the church as a whole, especially in America, is experiencing, is this idea of all denominations, is this idea of like growing out of this complacency.
It's good enough.
Yeah. Because like I think the church as a whole in the last 10 years has kind of seen what the rest of the world is looking like, and is seeing the trajectory of which society is going in. And we're getting to this point now where everyone's kind of waking up and realizing complacency is not it. And we have this huge, like Orthodox wave. People are, joining Orthodoxy and entering into the church at a rate that's we've never really seen before, like really experienced. And I think it's something very, very novel and new to this generation and to the church in general. And so I think, like you're saying, this idea of getting out of complacency and just, taking your faith seriously every single day and waking up every morning and praying and reading, actually praying and actually reading your Bible, and actually realizing the reality of what this faith really holds and what this faith really is, and the seriousness and depth of the liturgy and the Agbeya and the Bible. Like the Orthodox Church is so layered, so rich. There's so many, you can
learn something new every time.
You can talk about it forever. This podcast is this is the 150th one I've recorded, actually. So that's cool. But I could still do this for 500 more and learn something new every single time. So I think Orthodoxy is just so rich and so deep. Yeah. So looking back on your entire journey, from those first questions all the way to these recent questions that God has stirred in your heart, what is one truth about God that you've discovered and that you feel like the whole world should know?
I'm gonna give you two.
Sure, we'll get two.
So, at least for one, I think for people coming not from an Orthodox background, I think there's this idea of, if you just have a relationship with God, that's enough. Or if you just believe in him, that's good. But I think, God cares about the details. Like, he cares about the small things. And I think he does care about the way that we worship and all that kind of stuff. And then let's see, let me think about the way I word this. I just lost it.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's gone. Sorry.
It's all good. No worries. Yeah, I think that's a very, very good piece of advice. And I think not just for people coming from outside the faith, but even in the faith. I think it's a very important thing to kind of realize.
Oh, and I think also, maybe this isn't about God, but something that I would want people to know about Orthodoxy is I think when you look at Orthodoxy and it's unknown to you, it can seem very cold or ritualistic. But I think it's so deep and it's so rich, like we were talking about earlier. And those things really matter. And also the church is so full of love, and it's so full of people truly living out their faith in a way that I haven't seen in a lot of other denominations.
Yeah. Would you say that when you entered into an Orthodox church, you could you almost could feel the prayers of the people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's something that I've had the blessing of traveling all over America for this podcast, and even in Egypt a couple times. And so you see these people from all these different places in these Coptic Orthodox churches, and like the one thing I think that's very universal is the simplicity of the people, and just the depth of the prayers that you can just feel when you walk in a church. And the more simple the places you're going, the more you feel the prayer. Mm-hmm. Like the place where you feel it the most are places like villages in Egypt where like half the congregation can't read, you know, but like they're really reaching out from the bottom of their heart to God, and I think that's just so powerful. And there's not really much you can say about it. It's just powerful, you know.
No, definitely. And I do think you feel it when you hear the stories of the saints, and you know, you think of them all as being such miraculous people, and they are, but then you hear more about them as people, and you realize how, in some ways, how simple their faith is, and how simple they were as people, but their faith was so strong because of how much they just relied on God. Yeah,
like it says in the gospel, like we have a nature like Elijah, you know, like Elijah. You think of Elijah the prophet, like dude went to heaven on a chariot of fire, but like that's us, you know, like we're made of the same material that he's made of. If you could go back to yourself at the beginning of this journey and tell yourself one piece of advice, what is it? And then also, if you could go back and tell 16-year-old Carlie a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, that's a harder one. I think if I could go back to myself at the beginning of the journey, I would say just keep asking questions. I think asking questions and searching for truth is what got me to where I am. And then if I could go back to 16-year-old me, oh goodness. I don't know. I don't know if I have any advice or anything I would say other than just brace yourself for what's coming. No, but I think I would just tell myself, like, as simple as it is, to just keep trusting God, because his plan is truly so much greater than anything I could have imagined for my life. I would have never thought that I would be here, and can't thank God enough that I am.
For people who maybe are restless, scared, anxious about knocking on the door of orthodoxy, what would you tell them?
I would say, think about your whys. You know, think about, why do you want to do this? Why are you asking these questions? But then just make sure you ask them. You know, don't keep those questions very deep. Ask God, ask yourself, ask someone whatever questions you have. And don't be afraid to take that step and just come experience it. You know, I read about Orthodoxy a lot, and asked a lot of questions before I ever came into the church, and still none of them could have ever really 100% prepared me for the experiences that I had once I was actually in the church. You know, it's one thing to read about it, it's another thing to live it and to experience it.
Do you think you would have went and experienced, if you had to go back and like go back to the beginning of the journey, would you say you would have made an effort to experience it before you even started reading about it, or maybe just a little bit earlier, or not at all?
I think for me it was important to wrestle with some of the questions that I had before going, just so that I would give it an honest chance. I think if I had gone too early on, I may have just walked right out. Like, I might have just shut it down immediately because it was too different. I think I needed to take a little bit of time to understand what I was asking and why, and understand just a little bit more of the basics of what the church believed before I went in and was just experiencing all these unfamiliar things. And
I think part of that is I think naturally as humans, our spirit of questioning is a little bit on the aggressive side, a little bit on the hostile side. And I think what that does by asking those questions and getting answers that really humble us is that it humbles us. And so then we're able to be more open to those experiences. And so I do think it is vital. I think even for ourselves who grew up in the church, like it's vital to ask those questions in the moment where you get the question. Like I remember when I was in high school and really just high school, to be honest. But like, you know, you have these questions, and if you hold on to them for too long, they pull you down. You know, if you hold on to especially the big ones, like is the Eucharist really the Eucharist? Like, you know, you gotta, at some point you have to air it out. So I think, like you said, like ask the questions, just keep asking, because asking is it's never a bad thing. My last question for you. Last question. I'll just give you one more. What's your prayer for? Well, I guess this is a 3-part question. Sorry.
Okay.
But what is your looking back on your journey, on your life, and everything that's leading up to this point? What is your prayer for yourself, for the Orthodox people who are currently Orthodox, and people who are thinking about Orthodoxy, and then complete non-believers? So a 4-part question.
Okay. So first I'll answer for Orthodox people. I think sometimes Orthodox people have this fear that the church is almost going to be too much for outsiders, or that it's going to be like a pill that's too hard for them to swallow. But I think if people are really seeking truth, like, and if you really believe that they're going to find that in the Orthodox Church, like, to really encourage them, and not, sometimes I think they almost make it seem like, oh, it's this big thing, it's so hard, and it is hard, but it's so worth it. And then let's see, what were the other 3 parts?
Yourself, people who are like on the door of Orthodoxy, and people who are just completely like just non-believers.
I mean, for myself, this is definitely like a future, like, lifelong plan. But in the next, 5-10 years, God willing, I hope that I will have a few kids maybe. And my prayer is really that God will let Orthodoxy shine through me to my kids, and that I'll be able to raise them up in the faith, and that will be, a really, really crucial part of their life. Sometimes I can get a little nervous that maybe I don't have enough knowledge, or, that it's going to be harder because I wasn't raised in it. So my prayer is just that God would, be with me in those times. And then you said for non-believers and for...
Non-believers, people right in the door.
Okay. I would say for people right at the door, this is very, like, more practical prayer, but I pray that they would find someone who has the right answers for them. I think I was really lucky in that the priests that I went to were so amazing, and they were exactly what I needed at the time. And I think having a good mentor is really, really crucial, to make sure that you're getting into it for the right reasons, and for lots of reasons. So I pray that those people would find the right fit for them. And then, my prayer for people not in the church at all is just always that they would find truth, and find the church, and find this path to salvation. But my prayer also, I guess, for the rest of us, is that we would be a good reflection of Christ to those people. Yeah. And that I think for a lot of people, it's more important for them to see God working in the daily lives of others than it is for them to go into a church building, maybe. Yeah. Like, that might not have the same impact. So I just pray that we would be a good reflection of what the gospel is. Yeah,
there's a beautiful quote by Bono Bushoy Campbell. He says, always preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. So, like, be that living gospel, I think, for people. Yeah, absolutely. One last question, sorry. What do you think is something that us as Coptic Orthodox Christians can do better in terms of evangelism? I know this could be a whole podcast on its own, Yanni, but like...
Yeah. I think in general, like, just understanding why evangelism is so important. I think the cultural part of it, in that the church the Coptic Church specifically has faced so much persecution over the years in Egypt, that I feel like coming to America, it's really easy to stay in the shell and be like, this is for us and we want to protect it. We don't want to let anyone come in and tear it down, which is absolutely true. You do want to protect it. But I think just understanding why, if you have such this amazing and rich church and faith, that you want to share it with others, and that people are searching for truth. I think that's one thing to know, that coming from that background, I can tell you so many people are searching for truth and just don't really know where to find it. So I think sometimes we just have to let them know that it's there.
Yeah. Thank you, Carlie, for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. See you guys next week. Thank you.